There are so many things that can cause us to get angry. For me, there's a few different things. People not paying attention when the turn signal is going at a traffic light, going to McDonald's just to find out the ice cream machine is broken, putting IKEA furniture together, or those moments when you step on a piece of Lego with no shoes on. Literally, it's the worst. Here's the definition of anger: a strong feeling of annoyance, displeasure, or hostility toward a person, place, or a thing. What makes you angry? Imagine this. You're having a tough day, and everything seems to be going wrong. You're running late, your phone dies, you get a low grade on a test that you thought you studied enough for, and finally, you come home hoping for some peace, only to find that your younger sibling has accidentally ruined something that's super important to you. In that moment, anger boils up inside, and you're like a volcano ready to erupt. Anger is something that we all have to face in life. Anger itself, it's not sinful, but how we choose to deal with our anger can be. Before we continue, turn to the person next to you and answer this question. If you're by yourself watching this, what you can do is you can write down some of your thoughts and share them with someone that you trust later. Here's the question: what is something that makes you angry? Anger is a powerful emotion, and sometimes anger can cause us to act in ways that we normally wouldn't. It can cause us to yell or to shout or to say things that we regret. It can make us want to break things or hold grudges. Anger, it can cause us to be withdrawn or to be silent. Or sometimes even anger, it could cause us to want to be physically, emotionally, or verbally harmful towards other people. Again, anger itself is not a sin. Anger, it can actually propel us to take action against injustice, or propel us to want to make positive change in the world around us. Anger, it can be a great tool, but it can also be a horrible master. And what we do with our anger is extremely important. So how do we overcome the monster of anger in our lives? Well, let's jump into the Bible to see what it says about this. Here's what it says in Ephesians chapter 4, written by these words by Paul when it comes to dealing with anger. And we'll start at verse 25. This is what it says: "Therefore, each of you must put off falsehood and speak truthfully to your neighbor, for we are all members of one body. In your anger, do not sin." That's the kicker. "Do not let the sun go down while you're still angry, and do not give the devil a foothold. Anyone who has been stealing must steal no longer, but must work, doing something useful with their own hands, that they may have something to share with those in need." Verse 29, "Do not let any unwholesome talk come out of your mouths, but only what is helpful for building others up, according to their needs, that it may benefit those who listen." Verse 30, "And do not grieve the Holy Spirit of God, with whom you were sealed for the day of redemption. Get rid of all bitterness, rage, and anger, brawling and slander, along with every form of malice. Be kind and compassionate to one another, forgiving each other, just as Christ God forgave you." As pointed out in verse 26, in your anger, do not sin. The damage that anger can cause can be so destructive, not only to ourselves, but to people around us. There's a famous philosopher that once said these words: "Anger, if not restrained, is frequently more hurtful to us than the injury that provokes it." There have been many times that I've been so angry that I've just had this desire to break something. When I was a kid, I got so angry putting together my new Beyblade. I was so annoyed because the pieces were getting stuck together. Rather than just taking a breath, just chilling out, I took it and I smashed it onto the floor. Not only did it not help my anger, but I just broke my new Beyblade. The problem with anger is that it can take root in our lives and lead us down a destructive path that is harmful to our very soul. As the wise theologian Yoda once said, "Fear is the path to the dark side. Fear leads to anger. And what does anger do? Anger leads to hate, and hate leads to suffering." When the monster of anger takes over, it becomes this posture of, "You owe me, so pay up." It's this vicious emotion that can cause us to become bitter and critical and cynical and push everyone around us away. How do we defeat the monster of anger? Well, let's look back to verses 31 and 32. It says this: "Get rid of all bitterness, rage, and anger, brawling and slander, along with every form of malice." And then verse 32, "Be kind and compassionate to one another, forgiving each other just as Christ God forgave you." The way that we overcome the monster of anger is through grace. Because here's the problem: when we get angry, We end up desiring to harm another person. When anger takes over, we can feel justified in revenge, fighting back, or inflicting harm in the same way that harm was inflicted towards us. But Jesus, though, he offers us a different way. Because Jesus, he himself was betrayed by those who were closest to him. Jesus, he was mocked, he was beaten, he was scorned, even though he had done nothing wrong. And Jesus, when he was hanging up on that cross and being laughed at and mistreated, he said to the Father, "Father, forgive them, for they know not what they do." Jesus demonstrated a posture of love and forgiveness that even towards people that didn't deserve it. And here's the crazy thing, is that forgiveness has been extended to you and to me. We ourselves haven't been deserving of grace, but yet Jesus offers it to us. Even though we have sinned, made mistakes, and maybe done things that we regret, Jesus offers us another chance to do it right again. So when anger flares up, when we get angry, you know that feeling, when your blood starts to boil, maybe it's that desire to yell or to scream, that moment you want to throw something, or even in those moments where you just want to give someone the silent treatment, maybe gossip about them, or hold a grudge. Those moments are where we need to stop, where we need to go to God and remind ourselves of the grace that we have been forgiven. Sometimes our anger, it sometimes can be justified. Sometimes we've been really hurt by others, but how we choose to respond is so important. Maybe for us, we need to bring that anger to God in prayer, ask him to help us with it, and help us to be able to show grace to those around us. When we get angry about something that has been done to us, sometimes there are moments where we need to actually hold up a mirror and realize that we've been guilty of the exact same things.